Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me all the way in the back? Can you hear me back there? Yes? Great. Hi, today we're going to talk about the Workforce Restructuring Plan, this voluntary separation program that information went out on this Monday. I'm going to start from the benefits perspective, and then in a little while, Bob Lincoln, the Chief Human Resources Officer, will join us, and he'll give you an overview of the program itself. So I'm going to skip the first few slides and go to the benefits end, and then he'll be back here in a little bit. Let's talk about the voluntary program and the benefits that will be provided under that program for those of you that may be selected for that program. First and foremost, there's the severance benefit. The severance benefit provides pay based on your years of service and your base salary. So let's start with what's the formula. For your first 10 years of service, you would receive 1 week of base pay for each of those years. So in other words, you would receive 1 week times 10 if you had 10 years of service. Now say you had 15 years of service. Well, for those next 5 years, years 10 through 15, you'd receive another week and a half per year. So you'd have 10 weeks for the first 10 years of service and another 7.5 weeks for the next 5 years. And then it would continue from there. If you have more than 15 years, you would then add on 2 weeks for each year of service above 15 years of service. That would be the severance benefit under this program. Now, there are limits on the severance benefit. For non-union employees, the limit is 39 weeks of base pay and a cap of $50,000. For IBEW employees, the maximum benefit is 39 weeks of base pay. And for SCSPA employees, it is 39 weeks of base pay with a cap of $45,000. Now, I'm going to open up to questions as we go along, so please, if you have questions as we go along, you can go over to the microphone or raise your hand and ask the question, and I'll be happy to repeat it so that the rest of the group can hear this as well. Severance. Severance is a taxable benefit. It is income, and the government requires a different tax withholding for lump sum payments, because this would be a lump sum payment. We wouldn't be paying it week after week. We'd give you a check for it. So the rates at which withholdings would be are 25% for federal income tax, 1.45% for Medicare, 4.2% for FICA, 9.77% for New York State, for a total of 40.42% that will be withheld from the check. Now realize these are not our rates. We do not set these, so they are subject to change as the government changes the rates between now and when those distributions occur. But a withholding will be up at 40.42% for any severance that is provided. Questions yet? Yes?
Go to the COBRA, right? I'll be able to pay the lump sum for the year that we for the first year.
If I understood the question correctly, it was, could you pay for COBRA through the severance payments? And that's not possible. The law doesn't allow that, nor does it allow any of that to go into the retirement program or the 401k program. So there are certain things that the IRS doesn't allow to come out of certain checks. We'll talk a little bit later about the withholdings and what your options are and what you may be eligible for. We'll go through retirement and COBRA and another option as well. Other questions on severance yet?
One more thing.
Yes.
That tax rate, when you compute your income tax, you wouldn't pay that 25% for you. It's the standard. They withhold 25, but at the end of the year, would you get a refund from the IRS?
Excellent question. The question is, what if this isn't my normal tax rate and I'm at a lower rate than that? The answer is that on your following year tax return, now these distributions basically will happen in January, between January 5th and January 13th of 2012. So when you do your 2012 tax return in calendar year 2013, any money that you are due back as a result of your own personal income tax status will be a refund in your return, assuming you don't have other things to offset that. Now, we're going to talk about coverages under the various benefit programs, all of the coverages you have through the laboratory and on your last day of employment, your date of separation of employment, but you may be eligible to continue some of the coverages. Let's talk about all the different coverages: medical, dental, life insurance, long-term disability, the retirement programs, vacation and sick leave. And we'll go through each of those, and hopefully I'll help you to understand how each of those will work. First, medical insurance. We'll make sure that we continue your medical insurance in accordance with the different rules. There's COBRA, which is a continuation of benefits. There's a displaced worker medical benefits program that the Department of Energy provides as a continuation of benefits. And then there's the BSA medical plan, where some employees may be eligible for retiree medical. So there's 3 different possibilities. One big piece I want everyone to be aware of is if you're currently not in the medical plan and you're not enrolled for it at the time that you leave the laboratory, you cannot take the coverage with you. Under COBRA, under displaced worker, or under retiree medical, you have to have the program in place when you retire. But you can't sign up for it on that last day. We do have open enrollment right now that's going on until Friday, the 18th of November. You can sign up for that medical coverage now. It would be effective January 1st, and with termination dates between January 5th and 13th of 2012, you would then have that coverage in place and be able to go out with it under one of these scenarios.
Is that an either or is it all of them working together?
The question was, is it an either-or on the COBRA, the displaced worker, and the retiree, or is it an either-or? We will go through that just in a minute. They're all separate programs, and you would qualify for one or the other, but not all, and not 2. Okay, let's start with retiree medical. First, there are 2 basic criteria that apply to most employees. First is an age 55. You have to be a minimum age 55, plus have your years of continuous service, plus that age equals 70 or more. So age plus service equals 70 or more. There are minimum years of continuous service. If you were employed before January 1 of 2001, the minimum years of continuous service are 5. If you were hired after January 1, 2001, the minimum years of service are 10. So let's look at this. If I was an employee who was age 55, I would have to have 15 years of continuous service to get to the number 70. If I'm 60 years old, I just need 10 years of continuous service to get to the number 70, et cetera, and as long as you meet these minimum requirements for service. That's one way that you can have retiree medical insurance. Another is nothing to do with your age, just 35 years of service. And believe it or not, we do have some employees here who have been here from way back when with 35 years of service. So there is someone who could leave with 35 years of service and not be age 55. Now, there are other criteria that apply in the union contracts. I know I see someone in the audience from firefighters. I do know that there are other terms that come into play for the firefighters, the police, and other union positions. And the terms of those contracts are what would apply as to the medical eligibility. But criteria 1 and 2 here that I've stated do apply to everyone across the laboratory that's in the program. Second type of way to go out. Okay, displaced worker medical benefit program. Yes.
So if you're age 55 right now and you've been here for 11 years, you would not be eligible for the medical?
The question is, if I'm age 55 and I have 11 years of service, would I be eligible for retiree medical? Well, since 55 plus 11 only equals 66, no, you would not be eligible for retiree medical at that point. That's correct. Yes, back there.
Is there any reason to be interested in the retiree medical insurance ability if your spouse is still here and you decide to go now, and she's carrying the premiums for your coverage at the moment?
The question is there any reason that I should worry about retiree medical coverage eligibility if my spouse works here and I have the coverage under her? Well, it's a personal decision as to where you carry the coverage. There are no guarantees as to what coverage might be in the future. Right now, we do provide coverage for spouses and for families. If you are not eligible when you go out, you would not be able to gain that, you would not be able to pick it up at another time. So if for some reason it was no longer eligible to spouses in retirement, then that might be a time at which you would say, well, then I maybe should have had it. But right now we do have spousal coverage for retirees. I can't speak for what the future will bring. Other questions? Down here.
Now, as time goes on, are we grandfathered in on this thing at all? Like, say maybe down the line if they stop covering the spouse if you retire, well, is that going to change or?
The question is, am I grandfathered in on these benefits? There is no guarantee or certainty as to what the benefits will be in the future. There is no grandfathering in of benefits in the future. The lab over time has changed plan designs, the plans available, the cost of the plans, and even has the right to eliminate having programs. So no, there is no grandfathering under the program. I'm talking today about the current program, but I can't speak for what the future may be. Other questions? Okay, let's talk about the displaced worker program. This applies to medical benefits, just like we were talking about retiree medical. And under this program, you can continue medical coverage if you're part of a voluntary reduction program at the laboratory, if you were in the medical plan at the time that you leave the laboratory and separate from employment. Now, we'll talk about what the cost would be under these in a minute. Employees are not eligible for this program if they're eligible for any of the following. Another group medical program. Maybe you have another job somewhere. Maybe a spouse has a medical program and you have coverage under that. Medicare. If you have Medicare, you're not eligible for displaced worker benefits. Or the retiree medical plan itself. If you have coverage under our plan, you're not eligible for this. Employees who are eligible for BSA's retiree medical program cannot have displaced worker benefits. So either or. What's the displaced worker benefit? Okay, well, let's start with, in the first 12 months, you'd pay the active employee premium. So you'd look at the 2012 active employee premium for the Cigna or the Vitra plans for employee, employee plus one, or employee plus two or more, and that would be the premium that would apply during that first 12 months. It would be whatever the active employee premium is. And of course, that changes from year to year. The next 12 months, months 13 through 24, you would pay half of the COBRA cost, which is 102% of the plan cost. Most employees right now pay between 15 and 19% of the plan cost. So it would be a jump to half of the full plan cost. And then once you get past the first 2 years, the 25th month and later, it would go to the full cost of the plan, full COBRA cost, which is 102% of the plan cost. I want to mention one other thing on retiree medical, which I didn't mention at the time. Retiree medical premiums are currently 20% of the plan cost. All right, so anyone who retires from the laboratory will find 20% of the plan cost compared to this program, and then compared to COBRA. So you don't qualify as a retiree. If you're under the retiree program, you don't qualify for displaced worker. But okay, so maybe you don't have retiree coverage and you're still planning on leaving. Then the displaced worker program is going to apply to you. And if for some reason none of that applied to you, maybe you aren't retirement eligible, you have coverage through a spouse, your third option is COBRA. COBRA is the full cost of the plan, the 102%. The 2% is an administrative fee. And medical and dental could be covered under COBRA. COBRA is a maximum period of 18 months of coverage. And that goes from the date of separation of employment. Once again, if you're not eligible for retiree medical or displaced worker, this will come into play. We do not provide retiree dental benefits, so the only way to continue dental coverage when you leave the laboratory is through COBRA for up to 18 months. Questions so far?
You, for example, Cigna is a regular medical health plan, right? And we're paying a certain amount out of our salary. And if we retire and leave, we have to pay the whole amount that the lab is paying?
The question is, I'm currently paying a piece of the medical cost out of my salary now. Do I have to pay the whole cost of it when I leave? If you're eligible for retiree medical coverage, you'll pay 20% of the cost of the plan. If you're under displaced worker, you'll pay the same premium as the active employees pay, which is in the most case 15 and 19%, but there's a couple other possibilities. And if you have none of that available to you, then it would be the full cost of the plan.
Did I hear you say correctly that under the BSA medical plan, you don't have dental coverage? Is that correct?
As a medical and dental are totally separate. We have retiree medical coverage. The question was, is dental under medical or is it entirely separate? Medical coverage is a standalone program and dental is a standalone program. So you elect medical and dental coverage separately, but we only have COBRA for dental. We don't have a retiree dental program. I can also suggest for retirees there are some other programs out on the market, such as through AARP for dental and some other insurance carriers, which are worth looking into as well if you have those available to you.
If I'm eligible under the BSA medical plan, I can still opt to continue my dental coverage. Is that correct?
Anyone who leaves the laboratory, the question is, I'm under medical, I can opt to continue my dental. Anyone in this laboratory who leaves at any time, if they have a medical or a dental program, has an option to continue those programs through either retiree medical or COBRA or displaced worker. Dental is only available through COBRA. So medical can be continued, retiree, displaced worker, or COBRA. And dental, at any time anybody leaves the laboratory, doesn't have to be under reduction in force, you don't have to be retirement eligible. COBRA is the only option for 18 months at the full cost. Other questions so far? Yes?
Okay, at age 65, when Medicare kicks in, does the premium go down?
The question is, at age 65, when Medicare kicks in, does the premium go down for medical coverage? While you're an employee, there is no effect on the Medicare and the coordinating of that with the Cigna or the Vitra plans. When you retire, if you are eligible for Medicare, in order to have our programs, you must select Medicare Parts A and B, same for any family member who may be eligible for Medicare. Our program cost under Cigna would go down, and you would need to pay the Medicare Part B premium. That's sometimes maybe about $115 a month. I don't know what the current amount is, and they've got some new scenarios as to it's dependent on income. So I can't commit to what that amount is, but I would say it's probably more than $100 a month. Our premium goes down, and then that would be an offset. Yes?
Being that you're married, say the husband gets 65, the wife is still like 62.
What happens if my wife is younger than me or I'm older than her and one of us is eligible for Medicare and one is not? Then we charge you for one person who's eligible for Medicare and one person who's not eligible for Medicare. So we give you a rate that's a combined rate of one person for Medicare, one person not. Other questions on the premium so far? Yes?
Is Medicare cheaper than what we're paying here, COBRA or something? Say if you're 65 and you opt to take Medicare, is it cheaper to get it from Medicare?
The Medicare, is it cheaper to get our program or Medicare's program? The Medicare Part A and Part B that I was referring to are physician and hospital. That's all, not drug. To be able to get a program that somewhat mimics what we have, you would need Part A, Part B, and Part D, which is Medicare prescription drug. When you combine all of those, it's highly likely that that's more expensive than the current program for retirees. But you do need to compare depending on which plan you pick from us and which plan you select from Medicare, because they've got a few different offerings out there. Yes?
Is it possible to get like one-on-one counseling with somebody?
Let me open it up with what I usually close it with. Any of you who need any information, individual counseling, you have questions, you come to me. I'm in Building 400 in Human Resources in the Benefits Office. I'll gladly assist any of you with questions you may have. And I strongly suggest you give a call to your investment company, TI, CREF, or Fidelity, so that you can make sure of your financial situation there and your options as well. So yes, the question was, can I get some personal counseling? Absolutely, that's what I'm there for.
What does displaced worker mean?
It means you were displaced from your job. Displaced worker means you were displaced from your job as a worker. And that terminology isn't ours. That's a Department of Energy terminology that goes many, many years back. Other question in the back? Did I see a hand up?
Yes. Is there any dollar amount that you know of on F from Medicare?
Is there any dollar amount on Medicare? Did you say Part F, as in Frank?
Yes.
I don't have any information personally on the Medicare programs. Since we do not run those programs and since they have lots of options, I would suggest that you contact them directly or go onto their website because they have a booklet, Medicare and You. They've just recently updated that, so it should be available on the web right now to see what other options are out there. It's always good to look at your options. I'm going to continue. You can certainly keep coming with the questions, though. They're good. All right. How about employee life insurance coverage? Well, on your last day of employment, the life insurance coverage will end with the laboratory. But if you so choose, you can convert that to a private or an individual policy. Here's how it works. When we leave the laboratory, anyone who leaves is automatically going to get a letter from the Hartford. That's our life insurance company. They'll notify you directly at home. They know what amount of insurance you currently have. They know all the information that enables them to be able to tell you how much a policy would cost up to the amount you currently have. You're guaranteed to be issued that, whereas say if you go on the outside and you have a health issue, you might not be able to get a policy or it might be even more expensive on the outside. Now that policy through the Hartford on the outside, the private policy that you would convert to, is significantly more expensive. It's now an individual policy. It's not a group policy through BSA. It's age-based, so certainly someone who is 20 years old will find that on the outside that policy will be less expensive than someone who's 60 years old. So it is age-based and it is a significant amount. When it comes to life insurance coverage, there's a couple of things to consider. How much do I need? What's the right amount? Do I still have a mortgage? Are there things I need to cover or take into account? Maybe do I have enough in the retirement plan to take that into account? There's lots of things to think about when it comes to life insurance coverage, and sometimes the answer is, well, maybe I really don't even need that, or I only need a smaller amount. Those are all personal decisions, but things you should consider. In addition, I would suggest looking to see what other companies provide. What does AARP provide? What does SBLI provide? What do other carriers in the market provide? There's lots of them readily available online. So I do suggest you look at that as well. I think it's a very good thing to have a comparison. And questions on life insurance? Okay. Flexible spending accounts. If you're in a flexible spending account now and you happen to enroll during open enrollment, which ends this week, Friday the 18th, then what happens? Well, your flexible spending account would end on your termination date. So somewhere between January 5th and January 13th. Only expenses up to those days would be eligible for reimbursement, unless, for the healthcare account, unless you wanted to continue past that date, in which case we would bill you on a monthly basis for the contribution that you elected during the open enrollment period. And then you would have the account available to you for the longer period of time during the year for which you pay for it. Dependent daycare and transit are not allowed to be continued, so those will end on the last day of employment. And in both accounts, any funds that are remaining in the account are forfeited. There's no change in that. So this is a regular process, whether it was part of this program or you just decide to leave the laboratory even 6 months from now. That's the way the spending accounts work. Anything you've contributed for this year is still going to be available to you for expenses through December 31, but you have till the end of March 2012 to submit for those reimbursements. Questions on the flexible spending accounts?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
On the flex pay.
Yes.
Initially, I was planning to retire halfway through the year, and so I enrolled for kind of half the amount I thought I would expend. But now, if I take this, and so at the first of the year, it's going to be that amount of money. Do I have to use that whole amount up within those 15 days?
The question is, what if I enrolled for it during open enrollment and I put in an amount I thought I'd need for the year or halfway through the year, but then I leave in January as part of this voluntary separation program? What happens? Remembering that we only take out contributions on a monthly basis, you would only have from January 1st till your termination date the expenses to submit. And in this case, since the last day of the separation program is January 13th, no contributions would be going into that program. I checked with payroll yesterday because the cutoff date would be the 15th. You would have to be here past the 15th for any contributions to go into the program. So did that answer?
So essentially just
it wipes itself out.
it's wiped out.
Correct. Long-term disability. This coverage also ends on your last day of employment, your separation date. And unless you're totally disabled at that time, then that would be the only consideration for continuation that would occur. There are no conversion privileges on this policy. A moment ago, we spoke about life insurance and how you can convert that to an individual or a private policy. This policy doesn't have that availability, so it would end on your last day of employment. How about the retirement plans? Okay, first we're going to talk about the retirement plan the laboratory puts money into, and then we're going to talk about the 401k plan where you may have contributed as well. Contributions will cease to this plan on your last day of employment. Anyone who began participating in this plan before January 1 of 2007, the money in the plan is fully vested, meaning it's fully yours. You can do with that money as you please within the terms of the plan for distribution, but it's your money. If, on the other hand, it's someone who became a participant after January 1, 2007, then those accounts vest based on a vesting schedule. So if someone's here less than 2 years, then they have no money in the plan that is theirs. Between 2 and 3 years, 25% of the money in the plan is theirs when they leave. Between 3 and 4 years of service, 50% is theirs, etc. 4 to 5 years is 75%, and anyone who was participating in the plan on January 1, 2007 or later and had 5 more years of service, 100% of that money is available to them. Distributions under this plan, there's lots of different options available to you. I will be bringing TI-CREF in to have a seminar on distribution options. I'll have that in December. You can call a TI-CREF counselor and set up a one-on-one appointment at any time. I think that's a really great idea. The 800 number is available in the materials that you received. It's also online, or you can call us and we'll give it to you. But there are lots of different distribution options depending on age and your needs. 401k, that program is the one you may have put away some of your own money in. Contributions cease as of the date of employment, last day of employment. You cannot use any of the severance dollars to contribute to the 401k. The IRS does no longer allow that. Anyone who put money into this account, it's fully vested, it's your money. You get to take that with you. And if you have a loan or loans in this plan, once you leave, TI-CREF will contact you directly and arrange a loan repayment. And if you decide not to repay, then the outstanding loan balance becomes a distribution, which is taxable. Distributions on this plan as well, there's lots of different options, and that will also be available in a December seminar. Questions so far on the retirement or the 401k plan? Vacation pay and sick leave. How about those? Any unused accrued vacation that you have as of your last day of employment will be paid to you at that time. Sick leave benefits, any accrued sick leave or any sick leave time remaining on the books is not payable upon separation of employment. So accrued vacation gets paid, any remaining sick leave does not get paid. Yes? With this, your vacation would be part, the question is, how about the taxes? Vacation would still be part of your regular payroll. That would be distributed like your withholdings are right now, not part of that 40.42%, which is on the lump sum severance. Good question. Now, employee assistance program. We have an internal program, but we also have an external program that's available to employees, and we're going to continue that for 90 days after separation of employment. It includes 5 counseling sessions for any member of your household So that's going to be continued for 90 days. You can access that same as now, 24/7 hotline, or on the Magellan Assistance website. Lots of things that are available to you there that might be helpful to you and your family. Now, my office is there to assist you. If you have questions specific to the voluntary program, I suggest that you call or come and see me or email me. I'll be more than happy to answer your individual questions. I'm located in Building 400. My extension is 2881. Gee, I'm trying to point it off. 2881. And Melissa can also assist you at 2877, but I'll be your primary resource. As you heard me mention earlier, the things we talked about today in the benefits programs are today's programs, the current pricing. We do not guarantee what the future will be as far as these programs, the designs of them, the contributions required, or the existence of the programs. But these are the programs that we have as of today. And what we talked about today was pretty well a summary of them. So for more information, there are booklets and things online that we can point to give you additional information. I am pleased to present Bob Lincoln. He's our Chief Human Resources Officer, and he will go over the very beginning part of this program, which talks about, so, okay, you've told me all about the benefits. Now, if I'm interested, now what? And Bob, that's all up to you. Yes. Here, Bob. Look up. Yes, oh, good question. Good question. Thank you for... Long-term care insurance, what about it? Good question. Didn't get that question yesterday. On the long-term care insurance program, the insurance company, which is Prudential, they will contact you directly once you leave the laboratory. If you're in that program, you can also just give me a call. I'll give you their phone number, or it's on the website. They'll make arrangements directly with you regarding that program. Just like I talked about, some of the other companies will contact you. They will contact you as well, but I can give you the phone number to get some information in advance.
And does the cost rise significantly?
No, the costs are the same cost as while you're an active employee, because that was age-based. And Bob.
Thank you, Denise. Can everybody hear me? I don't know if this is working, but is it? Okay. First of all, I'm Bob Lincoln. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer and just joined the organization as a B&L employee in October of this year. I'm pleased to be here and to share this information with you. And let's do this kind of informally if we could. I'm going to go ahead and walk through the slides here, but anything that you want to just stop right at that point in time and ask a question, let's do that, okay? Let's not move forward if you have a question, all right? So, first of all, who's eligible? All staff in the laboratory are eligible, provided they work at least a 20-hour-a-week schedule, and with the exception of those three categories up there. And we also have the term appointments will be eligible as well. However, we will do kind of a cost-benefit ratio there because if your term appointment is over in a month, we're probably not going to say that we'll let you retire, or let you leave in the early out program. Bargaining unit employees, they may also participate, and some of the rules with the bargaining unit employees are a little bit different, and I'm sure that probably Denise, you covered that from a benefit perspective. So let's move forward here. First of all, I need to tell you that BSA, Brookhaven Science Associates, reserves the sole right to be able to say, no, we do not want to accept your offer for the program. And the basis for that will be because we have specific needs for the skills and capabilities and talents that you bring to the organization. And we can't afford to lose those skills. Or we may say no because we decided that we cannot replace it. We have to replace that position. So, for example, if you're in a key role and we say, listen, we can't afford to lose that role, then we'll say no. The key thing you have to understand here is that part of this program, in conjunction with the Department of Energy, is we cannot fill that position or replace that position if we allow an individual to voluntarily leave. Now, one thing that could happen, let me finish that out, okay, and then I'll take your question. If indeed we can promote a person from inside into that role, then we can do so, but we can't fill that role. So somewhere along the line, we have to have a net loss of one position. All right? Your managers are responsible for making that decision relative to decide whether or not that role can be eliminated, okay, or a subsequent role, okay? So the organization may or may not accept your application. Yes, sir.
Do you advertise for those positions, like if a technician wanted to come over into a union position?
No. In the union, okay, we'll follow the union rules for that, okay? But outside the union, we don't have the time to go through a posting process, so managers will promote.
If you don't get you 90 people, you still wouldn't try and get a technician to save a job to move into a union position?
Well, as I said, with union positions, we'll follow the posting process, okay?
I'm just saying, when I'm just asking you trying to save a job, try to move somebody over.
I'm not quite sure. I thought I answered your question, but I must not understand your question. So could you say it for me one more time?
I'm just saying you're trying to save a position from the laboratory, correct? You're trying to save jobs. So if a union position a person wanted to leave, you could take a technician from another group, move them into a laboratory, to a union position, correct?
That you can do that.
Right. But if it was advertised, you'd have more of a chance of filling those positions.
Well, you see, wait a second. You have to understand. We have to have a net loss of one position in the organization, all right? So if we post that and a person leaves from over here, the manager where that leaves from has to agree that that person can leave because, again, we have to have a net loss. And that manager might say, I can't afford to lose this position. You see, we have to eliminate a position. Am I clear on that? Does everybody understand that? If you don't understand it, sir, please say so. Well, those are the rules of the program that, again, we have certain requirements. So if you think about our customer, the Department of Energy, basically what they're saying is that, listen, if you can do a voluntary reduction, all right, and we'll allow you to pay the severance to those folks, but we want to see a net loss savings to the organization. So we cannot fill a position that a person vacates from, except if we promote somebody up or move somebody internally, but the position that person moves from internally cannot be filled. Okay? All right? One thing is that if you volunteer for a voluntary reduction in force, you will be required to sign a waiver, a release of claims, and a general waiver and a release of claims against the organization. I think all of you received a copy of that in your materials that you received, and that basically releases the organizations from any claims that you would have against the organization, and that is a requirement to be entitled to the severance pay. All right. Now, one thing that's very important: we need to really follow very closely the timeline that I'm going to go through you here today and make sure all those deadlines are made for certain forms that are filled out, okay? So let's go through those. In your package, you received an application form. That application form kind of informs you of what the situation is, and you have to fill that out, and you need to get that to us by the 28th of November, and it must be completed and filled out and delivered by 5 o'clock on the 28th. We will not accept any beyond the 28th of November, okay? The general release and waiver form, you do not have to fill that out at this time. What will happen is on the 28th, we will develop all the names, we'll give them to the supervisors or managers. The managers will go through those lists and make determinations of which positions they feel they can eliminate and not fill. On the 16th of December, you will receive a memo from my office, and that will indicate to you whether or not you've been selected or denied for the voluntary reduction program, okay? At that point in time, we will tell you in that memorandum that you need to fill out that general release and waiver form, and that needs to be filled out and signed by the 29th of December. So let's go through the steps again. Complete it on the 28th, by the 28th. We'll inform you on the 16th, and by the 29th of December, you need to fill out that waiver and send that in. Okay?
Purpose of that form?
Purpose of the waiver?
Yes.
That releases the company from any claims that you may have against the organization. It's a release of claims and waiver of any opportunity to sue the organization.
Give me an example of the claims that someone might want to.
You might want to file a civil suit against the company for some reason. And basically, you're waiving the right to do that.
Is that legal?
It is absolutely legal, yes. Uh-huh. Yes, sir.
Some people may be involved in claims to the energy employees occupation.
Yes.
How does that waiver affect that?
It does not affect that waiver, that program at all. All the programs you're talking about there, and nor does it waive anything on a workers' compensation perspective. Mm-hmm.
One of the things I need to be clear in my mind, if you put in a form that says, I want to participate in this program on the 28th of November, and then it's in, and then you are selected, but you had a change and you don't want to participate, if you withhold the waiver, can you essentially withdraw from the program?
Great question. That brings us to the next form, which is this one right here, the application of withdrawal form. In your packet, you received a sheet of paper, and it says application for withdrawal. You may, if you've turned in your application on the 28th of November, and then you subsequently decide that you want to withdraw that, you may do so, okay? However, the waiver form that you fill out, all right, once you fill that out, you have 7 days to change your mind. Once you've gone past that 7-day rescission period, then you're committed, all right?
So essentially, that's 7 days after the 29th of December?
It could be. If you sign your form on the 29th of December, it's 7 days after that date. If you signed it on the 20th, it's 7 days after the 20th, okay? Because basically, and I'll talk more about this, you have 45 days to review this offer by the company from the November 14th to December 29th. That's 45 days. You have a right to 45 days to consider that offer by the company. And once you sign that waiver, which, by the way, we're not asking you to sign that waiver until after the 16th, but after the 16th and as late as the 29th. So if you save it on the 29th, you still can rescind that up to the 5th of January. Okay? Everybody understand that? Questions on that?
Question, but not on the decision period. In the application, I'm reading it in the first paragraph, I'm quoting it. To understand that if there are insufficient volunteers, then I may be considered for involuntary termination, and therefore by voluntarily applying to be considered for termination, I will be assisting the employer in determining who should be terminated. Can you explain that to me, please?
Okay. That is a standard form that is from, by the way, did everybody hear the question? The gentleman read a phrase out of the application form that says that essentially, I don't know if I can repeat the entire amount. Yeah, okay.
It says, I understand that if there are insufficient volunteers, I think
Right.
the number is 90,
Yeah.
then I may be considered for involuntary termination, and therefore by voluntarily applying to be considered for termination, I will be assisting the employer in determining who should be terminated.
Right. Okay, thank you for rereading that louder. I appreciate that. Essentially, that is a standard form that we get from the Department of Energy that they're using across the entire complex. And in many organizations across in fact, Oak Ridge and Idaho, a couple of other ones, they are doing this layoff in conjunction with an involuntary layoff. We are not doing an involuntary layoff, nor do we have plans to do that at this point, okay? So essentially, that's a phrase that is being used in conjunction with other organizations that are doing both at the same time, okay? Did I?
Why is it in the form then?
Huh?
If BSA is not considering it at this time, why haven't you put it in the form?
That's a standard form from the Department of Energy that is part of the plan, the DOE plan that we have to use. Okay? Yes?
As a follow-up, then, if you've asked, with the hope of getting 90 responses, and you only get
No, not saying that. Yeah, I'm saying that right now we have no plans to do an involuntary layoff. No plans at this point. Well, let me just kind of go back and explain to you, what the motivation is here. The budgets for this year have been set. We've used those across the organization. We are within budget, but we haven't had a lot of money to make investments into things like IGPP or some programs that we'd like to invest in. So what we're doing is we're offering this to individuals who we believe that we could potentially let go that won't affect the mission of the lab, and using those savings to be able to invest in other areas. It's not because we can't meet a budget, okay? Now, right now, I can tell you that, things in Congress right now are pretty questionable, okay, if you're following the news at all, okay? We have no idea what may happen 6 months of the year, 9 months of the year, or whatever, and they might come to say, hey, you've got a 10% cut or a 15% cut. We have no idea. But right now, we have no intentions of doing an involuntary layoff. Again, this is conjecture on my part, and this and about $1 might buy you a coffee next door. But given the fact that it's election year, I don't anticipate something like this happening. But again, I can't make any guarantees. Okay? Other questions, please? Yes, sir.
Something bothers me about this 7-day rule.
Yes?
What's the difference between somebody puts on the 29th or puts it on, let's say yesterday was open, the books were open yesterday? What is the difference? And you have 7 days. Person that puts on the 29th has from yesterday, for example, all the way up to the 29th. Only has 7 days, but then the person that puts on the 29th has from yesterday all the way past the 29th.
Okay. The question is there's a question about the 7-day rescission period, and if a person signs if a person signs the waiver, the general release and waiver of claims, if they sign that on the 16th, they have 7 days to rescind, but if they sign it on the 29th, if they sign it on the 16th, I mean the 23rd, they'd have to rescind. But if they sign it on the 29th, they'd all the way to January 5th. And I think that's what you don't understand, correct? Okay. Remember I told you it's a federal regulation, the Older Workers Protection Act. We have to give you 45 days to consider this. Some people may decide, hey, I don't need more than 45 days to consider. I want to go ahead and sign up right now. So those individuals, when they're informed on the 16th, they have the option to do it on the 16th or 29th. If you want to wait till the 29th and have the 7 days until the 5th, that's fine. But under the law, we have to give you 45 days to consider. And then after those 40, and then any time from the 16th on, you can sign that form. But then you have 7 days from the time you sign that form. And it'll talk to you about that in the actual waiver form too. Yes, sir.
You penalize the people that print early, but the people that print later, since they all going to go on the pool, the manager is going to decide afterwards, after the 29th, you penalize the people that print earlier for their decision making if they change their mind.
No. Well, first of all, we're asking you not to sign the waiver until after you've been approved on the 16th. So the decision whether or not you opt into the plan and you're approved or denied is made even before you have to sign that form and the 7-day rescission period. So there's no impact one way or the other in terms of the decision around your acceptance or non-acceptance. So if you feel uncomfortable, sign it on the 16th, 17th, or 18th. Wait until the 29th. That's not a problem. You have that option. You have that prerogative. Okay? Other questions about that? Okay? So, if you do change your mind, you'll fill out this form, which is the SSV application withdrawal form. And once you sign, you have to sign that within 7 days of signing the agreement. Okay? This census information, one of the things that we're required to do by law is to inform you the number of positions that are available or eligible for the program and the number of positions that are not eligible for the program. So if you remember on the first slide, I said, here are the people that are eligible. Well, there's a list of every position that's eligible and the age of the person that's in that position. And subsequent to that, after that, there is then a list of the positions that are not eligible and the person who holds that position, their age. Okay, so that is online. You can see that on the website and is available for your review. And again, that's a requirement to let you know who's eligible and who's not eligible in terms of positions and the age of the people in those positions. Okay? Questions on that? Okay. So here's the schedule. Let's walk through that schedule so you know all the key and important dates. The announcement went out on Monday, the 14th, and the internal website was opened on the 14th. How many people have been on the website to look at that? Not very many of you, but that website is up there, and all the information that Denise went over, and I'm going over today, is on there, and you can click into information, you can click into the forums, all the postings, that's all up there, and you can review that, okay? The open period that I've mentioned for you to make a decision whether or not you want to apply, okay, is the 14th to the 28th. Now, the beginning of that 45-day right to consider period occurred on the 14th of November and again ends on the 29th of December. We're having employee information meetings. We had a meeting yesterday. We have this meeting today. We'll have another one next week on Monday. In addition, as Denise has told you, if you didn't get the information you need out of the meeting or from the website or for the communications, please feel free to call our office. We'll be glad to answer your questions. The last day for you to apply, again, is on 11/28. Those forms, by the way, need to be delivered to my office, okay, in Human Resources by 5 o'clock on the 28th. Managers then will have from the 29th of November to the 9th of December to be able to review all the applications and to make a determination whether or not they want to accept or not accept the application. Once the application has been approved, on the 16th, you will receive, or once they're approved, we will then send you a personal email that tells you that you have been either denied or that you've been accepted. And that memo that will give you some instructions, which will basically say, you've been accepted, please meet with your manager and determine what date of what is the date of your termination, and that termination should be from the 5th of January to the 13th of January. So meet with your manager and then make that determination. Once you've made that determination, you will complete the waiver, and that waiver needs to be turned in by the 29th of December. Okay? Then the 29th is the last date for you to turn that in. The last possible date for the 7-day rescission, if you signed it on the 29th, the last day for you to rescind would be the 5th of January. If you signed it on the 20th of December, the last day for you to decide that you want to change your mind would be the 27th. Okay? The exits will begin starting on the 5th of January and go through the 13th, depending on what you decided with your manager. And the last day to exit would be on the 13th. Okay, so let's go over. What is it you have to do if you're interested in taking advantage of this? First of all, go on. Yes, sir.
What happens if one of those days winds up on Christmas Day, 7 days, or Saturday or Sunday? You take an email?
I think what we would do on something like that, I would extend that to the next business day.
Business day?
Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Next business day is fine. Huh?
7 days could happen.
Yeah, it could. You're right. You're right. It could.
Well, we have accepted some that have come in by fax because people are not in the area, and then we've asked them to make sure that we get the original signed document afterwards. So that's another one that's also.
So, what do? First of all, I think you really need to gather a lot of information. You need to go online, you need to look at the materials that were provided to you, and you need to consider whether or not this is the right thing for me. If you decide that you want to move forward on this, complete the application and get it to my office by the 28th of November. Step 2, well, that is step 2, is send that to my office by the 28th. Step 3, if you're approved, you'll be notified of that on the 16th of December. And you should coordinate with your manager what the exit date is. You should complete your waiver and make sure it gets to our office by the 29th of December. Step 4 is the signing of the waiver. Step 5, if you change your mind, within 7 days of signing that waiver and submitting to our office, you need to then submit the withdrawal form. Okay? So I hope we've made this clear. Okay? If there's anything that's unclear, please feel free to ask those questions right now. Okay? Yes, sir.
Saying the date would be what, like January 14th?
What now? I'm sorry.
If you put this back, you can leave separate.
Yeah. By January 13th.
Way you could be extended.
No. I'm sorry? Not at all. No. No. Other questions? And remember, there is something that's very important that I did not mention here, but it's in the information online, is that once you've accepted this, you cannot be rehired by the lab as an employee or a contractor, because within 1 year, if you do, you have to repay your severance pay. And that does not only for Brookhaven, but any government contractor in the system. Okay? Other questions? Yes, yes, ma'am. Okay, please.
Now, I was just wondering, everybody keeps saying, is there anything like unemployment that you get unemployment?
Okay.
I haven't heard that mentioned.
Okay, good. Let me talk to you about unemployment. First of all, Brookhaven cannot make a determination of whether or not you're eligible for unemployment. That's something the state has to do. I can tell you that Brookhaven Science Associates, BSA, will not contest any claim that you make. Because what happens, you go and file, and if they determine they think you're eligible, they send us paperwork, and many times we say, listen, we're either going to challenge this or we're not going to challenge this. We will not challenge any unemployment claim that comes as a result of a voluntary reduction in force. But I cannot stand up here and tell you, yes, you're eligible, and no, you're not, because that's the decision that the New York State will make, and I can't commit for the state of New York.
So in other words, if you wanted to, you could put in for it, and then it would be decided.
By the state of New York, yes. Did everybody understand? I hope you heard her question. I didn't repeat it. She wanted to know about unemployment insurance. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, most of us probably haven't applied for unemployment yet. Don't you have to show some proof that you were laid off? And all we have is wait to say voluntarily.
When you
Make a difference on what their determination is based on that law.
yes. Wait, I'm sorry? Yeah, okay. Basically, the question was, when you go to the unemployment office, what do you tell them, or what do they do? Is there something you're supposed to provide them that shows this, and I guess how they'll react to that? Essentially, when you leave here, when you go and file your unemployment claim, you'll fill out a form, and in that form, it asks you what is your reason for exiting. Okay, you can put down on there what you'd like, but if I were somebody, I would probably put there I was in a voluntary RIF. Okay, I accepted a reduction in force, and then they'll look at that and make a determination. Normally, when a person goes there, they don't ask you for specific documentation unless you've been terminated for cause and you have some paperwork like that. But when they send it to us, we will put on there it was a reduction in force, a voluntary reduction in force.
And you put down you were fired, you wouldn't tell them
No, I'm going to put down exactly what I just said. Accepted a voluntary reduction in force.
Does the word voluntary hurt you?
Well, again, that's what we're going to put down because that's what happened, okay? A voluntary reduction in force. I'm not going to put you fired because if we tell them they're fired, if you're fired for cause, many times what that means is they may not give you unemployment. Huh? I'm sorry?
Just the word reduction was not voluntary to make a difference.
Well, I cannot tell you what to put down on the form, but I can tell you what we'll put down. I'm not going to lie to the state of New York on why you left the organization, okay? I'm sorry? Let me just answer one other question. I will tell you that people who have gone in voluntary reductions in the past, many of those people collected unemployment. But I can't stand up here and make a commitment for the state of New York, nor will I do that. All right? Nor will I promise to you that you can collect unemployment. Okay, yes, sir.
Given the importance of this point for many of us that might be considering this, couldn't the B&L investigate this with the New York State Department of Unemployment to see whether or not we would be eligible for unemployment?
We have called them and we have talked with them. Okay? And they've told us that, it depends on a variety of things, but they will not commit to you verbally whether or not you're eligible or not. They want to look at the facts on each in particular in each person. Again, I will tell you, people in the past who've done this have collected, but I can't stand up here and tell you that the state will approve your claim, because if for some reason they don't, you're going to come back to me and say this is your fault. And I will not make that commitment for the state, which I have no ability to have control over a decision that's not within my guideline or my ability to commit to you. Yes, sir.
What is the severance package for a part-time employee?
Okay, severance package for part-time employees. If you, first of all, there is a calculation, and I think that Denise went over that calculation with you in terms of the number of years and the number of weeks. Now, if you have worked full-time all that time, then it's going to be based on your full-time pay. But the way the calculation works, if you are now part-time, and at one time during your history you were full-time, we'll go back to each one of those years and look at each one of those years. If that's full-time, it was counted as a full-time year. If it was part-time, it's counted as a part-time year based on the number of hours worked. So we'll go actually back and look at each one of the years you've worked, and it's prorated based on that.
The maximum amount right now is 50,039 weeks, right?
Right?
All right. Basically, you worked 38 weeks full-time and the last year part-time.
Right?
Will you be eligible for 50K, or are you going to be eligible for whatever your part-time?
Two separate calculations, okay? We'll do the calculation based on the number of weeks, and to each one of those years that you worked, okay, if it was full-time, if you had 38 years of full-time, and then 1 year of, or 1 year, 1 week of part-time, then we'll do the calculation from that. If that tends to be $60,000, then the max you could receive is 50. But if the maximum, the calculation comes at 48, then you receive 48. Okay, surely. The calculation is really in the individual's favor, because if you have worked here most of the time full-time and have just recently gone to part-time, it really doesn't impact you except for that year that you were partially. Okay? Yes, sir. Okay. Nice, good advice for people. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You mentioned about returning to work for the laboratory. There's a period of 1 year, and I can see where that would apply to you as an individual. If you
Yeah. If you could not come back even as a contractor to work for the organization with that year period, or you'd be subject to repaying the portion of your severance pay depending on how long you've been gone. And again, if you think about our client, the Department of Energy, we're saying to them, we're letting this person go because we no longer need them, and we're giving them severance. And so if we turn around and hire you back because we need you, DOE's looking at us and saying, our client's looking at it and saying, well, listen, you just paid that person to leave, now you're bringing them back. So why did you do that? Okay? So that's what the rule that applies.
You could have a contractor working for the laboratory who has staff changes with his own organization and needs to replace those people. If you're one of the people that needs that replacement, then that doesn't change the numbers that you quoted.
Appreciate that, and I understand what your logic is, but I've got to tell you, this is the rule, and we have to follow those rules.
That rule applies.
That rule applies. It absolutely does. Yes.
I understand.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm of age, we talked about this before. I'm 55, and I got almost 11 years of service. I would love to take this, but I don't qualify for that.
Mm-hmm.
If I am going to save someone's job,
Sure, go ahead.
The question was, if I'm not eligible for retiring medical, but you're going to save somebody's job, wouldn't it be worthwhile to give me the retiring medical so you save the job? The terms of the plan, we have to stay within them. They're IRS guidelines and plan documents, so we're not allowed to bend on those. Keep in mind that you may not be eligible for retiring medical, maybe you're eligible for the displaced worker, which goes on for quite a number of years as well. But we're unable to change the terms of lots of these things, such as the program for the SSVSP and the benefit programs, because they're all governed by different bodies, the IRS, the federal government, the Department of Energy.
Yes.
I got one question on that 39 weeks that you get. According to the paperwork that was sent out for the general employees was 39 weeks. Union was legal contract. I read the contract. It was about 39 weeks there.
The question was, you did not see 39 weeks in a union contract. I will check the contract again. The contract should have 39 weeks for IBW, but not a dollar amount. It shouldn't have that $50,000 amount. It has a 39-week
Doesn't
amount.
have the 50,000. It doesn't have 39 weeks either.
I will look at the contract again, and I will advise if it's different.
All the states was anything after 15 years, you get 2 weeks, so on and so forth.
I will review the contract, and I will advise you if there's a difference.
Yeah. And just to make sure, could you give us your name so we can make sure? You know? Okay, fine. All right. Other questions? Okay, thank you for coming. I hope we answered your questions. If not, we'll be up here afterwards, so you can come up and talk to us individually. Thank you.